Do you want to know how to take your photos from this to this? Then stay tuned. Hi and welcome to this new video. This is actually the first video that I'm recording from my new Sony a7C Mark II, and I'm super excited to have you all here. You probably know all the pictures on Instagram where photographers have this moody cinematic style to their pictures, and if you're a beginner and new to Lightroom and photography, it probably might be confusing to you how to actually achieve this look, but that's what I'm here for. In this video, I'm going to explain to you how you can take your photos and make them look very cinematic. One thing that you got to think of first though, you will have to take your photos in RAW. This just gives you a lot more options when it comes to editing the photo and actually achieving that cinematic, moody kind of look that you're going for. If you're completely new to Lightroom, don't worry, it's actually not that complicated to use the tool, and I will guide you through all the necessary steps. All right, so let's head right onto my desktop and I will show you what it looks like once you open up Lightroom. All right, so welcome to my desktop. As you can see, I already uploaded 2 photos into Lightroom. You can see them right down here. Those are 2 photos, by the way, from my trip to Indonesia. If you haven't seen the vlog, watch it right here. When you first start up Lightroom, you might be a little confused with the whole user interface. So I'm going to explain everything to you right now. On the left side, it's mainly about profile, the different folders that you created, and the community tab. The part that is most important, you can see right here, are these different albums. I created one for tutorials, and then I have one with portraits, travel stuff, but you can sort your pictures however you want in there. And then in the middle, you can see like the big photo preview, and here you can see what the photo looks like. And you can also change the view to view multiple photos within your album or 2 next to each other, which makes it easier to go through everything and sort it and sort out photos you don't want to keep before editing the whole batch. You're probably going to mainly stay in the detail view right here, which gives you a good view of your photo. Down here, you can also rate the photos, so it's easier to find your favorites after you've edited everything. You also have the option to copy or edit settings, which I'm going to go into later on. On the very right, you can see these different menus, and we're going to start with the edit menu, which is right here. This is also probably the most important window that you can access. Here you can change everything about the light, the different colors, add different effects, and actually create the look that you're going for. So this is where you're going to make your photo cinematic or moody or whatever you want to call it. That's where you give it the look. So let's start off with the exposure. Actually, this photo is pretty well exposed. So I'm not going to change anything about that, but essentially what the exposure does, it makes the picture more light or more dark. We're going to keep it right around 0. Then we have contrast. Essentially what contrast is the difference between the light parts and the dark parts in a photo and how far they are apart from each other. So if you want to make your picture more interesting and it looks kind of flat, you want to turn up the contrast, which I usually do, but don't overdo it, otherwise it will look like over edited. So let's turn that up a little bit. So you can see it's getting more and more vibrant as well, because every time you pull up the contrast in a photo, it's also going to add saturation. And then we have highlights and shadows. Highlights are the lightest parts in your image, so usually the sky and everything that appears pretty bright, and the shadows are the darkest parts, so maybe down here. Usually what you want to do, not in every photo, but a good rule of thumb is that you want to make the parts that are very light a bit more dark, so you can regain some detail. Brighten up the dark parts so you can regain detail there as well. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. If we push down those highlights, you can see back here in the sky, we add a lot more details. So we're going to bring that almost all the way down. And for the shadows, you want to watch right here and maybe here. If we pull those up, as you can see, we can see a lot more in the photo. So we're going to go to maybe around 42 to keep it a bit dark, but get the detail that you want. And now one important feature that you also want to know within Lightroom is right down here. On this button right here, you can compare the photo with before and after. So you can show the original. So basically before, after. You can already see we created a lot more detail in the shot and it looks a lot more interesting and professional. Nice. And then we have the whites and the blacks, which essentially, as the name says, it affects those parts of the image that are completely white or completely black. As you can see, if we pull that down further, we can also get some more detail out of the whites. And what I like to do, I actually like to pull down the blacks a bit, just because it makes the image pop a little more. Next part is the tone curve. So for the tone curve, I think for the beginning, it's easiest if you just create a little S-curve. So you want to place on each of those parts of the line, 1 dot, and then create a little S like that. Basically, this also just affects the shadows, the highlights, the midtones, the whites, and the blacks. And having a little S-curve gives you that very typical Instagram moody cinematic look. The next field is where you are gonna be creative and create really your own personal look and feel for the photo. Color. So for color, the first thing you want to do is adjust the white balance, the tint, the vibrance, and the saturation. So the temperature has two sliders. The first one, the temperature, goes from blue and a little more warm look, so it makes your image warm or cold. As you can see, if I turn it down, it gets pretty cold, and if I turn it up, it gets warmer. I have decided for this, because it was like a warm vacation, I want to go for a warmer look, so I'm going to turn that up slightly. I don't want to overdo it, but give it a little more of a warm look. And for the tint, I try to keep it original, right? So the tint basically shows if your picture leans more towards green or towards purple. And as you can see, if I go down, it makes everything green. And if I go up, it makes everything purple. 7 is the value for my picture that makes it look real and realistic. I want to go slightly above it because I want to make the purple pop a little bit. All right, once you adjusted the white balance, we come to vibrance and saturation. So both of these values have to do with how strong and how much your colors pop in an image. I'm going to start with saturation. As you can see, boom or boom. Basically, if you turn it all the way down, you have a black and white image. The vibrance, on the other hand, doesn't affect all the colors in the image, but only those which don't pop at that point in time. So I always pull up the vibrance quite a little bit to make those colors that don't pop at that moment stick out a bit more and make everything a little more equal. While I do like to turn the saturation down a little bit, because that's where it gets kind of moody. So right now we have a pretty good image that shows a not too stylized version of what this sunset looked in real life. And if we compare it to our raw image, which is super flat, you can see it already has a hell of a difference. But now when we come to the part that is my favorite, the color mixer. This is where you really give the image the final look and make it look the way you want. In this part, you can affect all the different colors within the image separate. So basically you can take the red and then it's just going to affect all the reds. And you can change the saturation, the luminance, and the hue. The saturation, same as I explained before. You can see on this part there's some red tones. We turn it up, it gets very strong, and if we turn it down, it basically gets gray. The hue affects the color. So for red, for example, it switches it from an orange tint to a more purple tint. The luminance makes it lighter or darker, as you can see. So for the reds, I don't want to do too much. I am gonna desaturate it a little bit because I don't want it to be too strong, and I do prefer it if it's a bit more to the purple side to make the color in the flower pop a bit and then also make it brighter. For the oranges, this is a part where you gotta be more careful, especially if you take photos of people, because that's gonna affect their skin tone usually. Same with the red, but the orange much more. So we are gonna see which parts of the image are orange, and as you can see, pretty much the whole image is orange because we have a very warm sunset type image. We could go over here and make the sunset really pop, but one rule of thumb that you should keep in mind is never go to extremes of the colors. So first of all, I want to see if I prefer the sunset to be a bit more in the purple or in the greens. Obviously the purple is gonna make it look a lot more like a sunset, so we're gonna go a little bit over here. I am actually gonna only slightly increase the saturation, decrease it a bit here, looks too purple. And I could also change the light over here as well. I want to get it a bit darker so we can get a little more detail within the sunset over here. All right, so now for the yellows, what I always do, which is an easy trick to see where your colors are actually in the image, just move it around here and then you can already see the image pop up here and here. So we can see where our yellows are located, because I do want to keep the green a little bit in the greenery over here. And then I can decide if I want to give it a bit more of a green tint or an orange tint, just because I don't want to affect the sunset too much. I'm going to make it a little bit more orange, but I am going to desaturate it a bit so the trees down here don't get too much into the focus. And now we have the greens, which, as you can see, it's not even affecting the trees too much. They're already so much into the yellow. I'm going to desaturate it a bit to get the viewer to look at the sunset, and push them a little bit towards the blues to give it a bit more contrast and give it a little light. Then for the teal color, there's not too much affected, so I'm not going to touch this. And then the blue is usually also a big part of the image and really affects the darker parts. And as you can see, the mountains in the back and the sky are affected. I'm just gonna turn the saturation down a little bit, move it slightly to the purples, make it slightly darker to give some detail to the sky. And for purple, not too much to do here, and the magentas, not too important in this photo, so I'm just going to desaturate it a little bit. And as you can see, we already gave the whole image a pretty good look. And one thing you can also use is you can use the point color and pick like the actual color of like a specific thing. So if you want to create this ship right here, you can put the needle up here and take that color and only edit that color. So now you pretty much have the look of your photo. The next part is effects. One thing you can do with the effects is add a little more texture. As you can see, it makes the image very clear. I usually don't touch that. Same for the clarity. Not a big fan of messing around with that. I do like to add a little dark vignette. As you can see, the vignette just adds a black circle or a white circle around the image. I make it slightly darker to really suck in the viewer into the photo. And then one part which you don't want to use if you want to make the whole image kind of give it a film cinematic look, which is grain. You can add grain just like in a film photo. I wouldn't add 100%, but a little bit, like let's say 20. And you can also mess with the size of the grain. I prefer to keep it a little higher than the regular and make it a bit rougher. And now you can see we have this film look integrated in the photo. It looks like it was shot on a film camera. Kind of cheating, but you know, it is what it is. So now that you have the look of your photo, the next part I check if the sky is horizontal. So in this photo, it looks pretty good, to be honest, but let's say you took the image like this. You will go to the side of the image and tilt it all the way till these lines align with the horizon. So kind of like this. And you can also choose which part of the image, if you want to make it bigger or smaller. And you can also choose the aspect ratio. And then you can also see if the rule of thirds, where you want to place the subjects of the image, align with these lines. So I want to keep the mountain right here, and I do want to add the boat to the other third. Check one more time if the horizon seems right. Think like this. Looks good to me like this. And now if you want to compare the before and after and see what it was before, after. And as you can see, it's a big difference. And then there's two more tools that you should keep in mind. One of them is the remove tool. So if you have parts in your image that you don't like, for example, let's say I've been looking at this black bubble right here. You can choose this right here, the removal tool, adjust the size, and then hover over it, mark this thing, and it will remove it. You can also, especially if it's like bigger parts, and there's you can use generative AI to do it or detect the object, and it really helps out. And the last part is masking. Masking gives you the option to take specific parts of the image and only edit those. I'm not gonna go over all the masks, but just show you my favorites that I usually use. So the first one is a linear gradient. I like to use that to really make the sky pop a bit more and add a filter that basically only goes over parts of the image. As you can see, everything that is like slightly red here is going to be edited in that part. And so let's say we want to go to the horizon and give it a little more light, just so we can really see the sun coming down from here. We can adjust the exposure here, or we adjust the highlights and make them a little bit brighter or even darker if you want to give more details. So I prefer it actually when the highlights are down a bit. And then you can also add another one to the bottom. And let's say you want to make it a bit lighter down here so we can get some more details in the bushes. You could do that, but you can also turn it down, whatever you prefer. That's basically the linear gradient. Then we have the brush. With the brush, you can specifically draw. So you can say, okay, this part of the image, this little walkway, I want to make it pop a little bit more. You could adjust the brightness or make it darker in that part. So let's just adjust it slightly. The last one I want to show you is the object detection. So what this does, it detects an object, obviously, duh, and you can edit that object. So you will still have to kind of mask it. So let's say we want that mountain, boom, it will get where the mountain is. And then you can add more exposure to the mountain. As you can see, this is the part that was selected, or make it darker. I want to make it a bit more visible, but you gotta be careful, because if you over edit even in the slightest way with the masking tool, it's gonna be very visible in the photo. So don't overdo it, but it's a very powerful tool. Let's say we're happy with this. And we want this look for the whole entire trip, because it looks weird if one photo basically looks super different from the others. One very easy way you can go about that is go down here, select the photo that you just edited, and do copy settings. And then you can shift left click and select all the ones that you wanted to use and do paste edit settings. And as you can see, it basically already edited this photo that we also took. As you can see, before, after, and we have the same look. So you can create one look for your entire trip. Once you're done with the photo, you can either share it via Lightroom link, or you can export it right here. But that's basically how you create a cinematic Moody kind of look in Lightroom very easily. All right, and that's it. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments and I will try to help you out. Also, if you're a professional photographer or you have some more experience than I do in Lightroom, let me know down in the comments what I could improve on my workflow and educate me. Make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss any of my videos on photography, cinematography, cinematic vlogs, and tech. I hope to see you in the next one. Till then, take care.